Alright, so here in this video we're going to go over the 5.3 quiz answers. So all these are about factoring and then using those factors to help solve for your x-intercepts. Let's get started. I see two terms here with an x squared, so think of the sum and difference of squares. Now I'm visualizing our square roots of the 9. X squared, which would be 3x and 3x. Square root of the 16 to be the 4 and the negative 4. So this is our factorization. So to find our x-intercepts, I'm going to set up both of these equal to 0 and solve them out. So we'll have 3x is equal to a negative 4. This one will be 3x is equal to a positive 4. Getting our solutions to be x is equal to a negative 4 over 3 and x is equal to a positive 4 over 3. If you wanted to list that out as x is equal to plus or minus 4 over 3, that would work as well. This one here is sum and difference of cubes because of that third power. So this is a SOAP problem, so we're same, opposite, always positive. Looking for the cube root of our a cubed, which would be an x. Cube root of the b, which is going to be a 2. Because 2 to the third power is 8. So once we have that, now we're using our formula, where it's a and b, and then a squared, ab, and b squared. Alright, so from here to find the zeros, this piece is easy to find the zero of. It's x is equal to 2. So I can take that down here. Now, anytime we do the sum and difference of cubes, this piece here will always be imaginary. You can use quadratic formula on it. I'm going to complete the square, however, because that's going to be a little quicker and easier, in my opinion. And I'm going to go ahead and subtract that 4 from both sides. Now, bringing this in here, to complete the square, I'd have to add a 1 onto both sides, which would now allow me to factor this side here to x plus 1, giving me x plus 1 squared is equal to a negative 3. Now I'm able to square root both sides, and I will get x plus 1 is equal to, the square root of negative 3 is plus or minus I square root of 3. Then when I subtract the 1, I'll get that x is equal to a negative 1 plus or minus I square root of 3. And this is the same answer that you would have gotten if you used the quadratic formula on this piece as well. Alright, next up, I got this one here. Identifying factor 3 terms, highest degree x to the 4th. So this is where I'm going to be essentially regularly factoring, except I need to start off x squared and x squared. Now, when you're looking for the factors of negative 36 that add up together to give us a positive 5, that would be a positive 9 and a negative 4. Set that up equal to 0. Now we set both pieces up equal to 0 and solve it out. So we'll get that x squared is equal to negative 9, x squared is equal to 4. So when I square root these here, for this one, we'll get that x is equal to plus or minus 3i. Square root of 9 is 9. It was negative, so we have the I. And then this one here is that x is equal to plus or minus 2, because square root of 4 is 2. This one here, key indicating factor 4 terms. So we're going to factor by grouping. GCF of x squared here, giving us x plus 4. In this one, they're both negative, so I'm going to factor out a negative as well as a 3, getting us x plus 4. We know we factoring by grouping was successful because we get the same term twice here. So then we have x squared minus 3. We have our GCF terms, and then we have that factored term. Set both of those up equal to 0. This one solves out easily to get us x is equal to a negative 4. This one here, once we add the 3, we have x squared is equal to 3. Square root both sides to get plus or minus square root of 3. This one here, it's 3 terms with x to the cube, which means hopefully we have a GCF. We do. It's an x. So we have x squared plus 10x plus 24. So we have the x as a GCF. But now we are simply regularly factoring this inside piece for x plus 6, x plus 4. So our solutions here, the one on the outside is x is equal to 0, then we have x is equal to a negative 6, and we have x is equal to a negative 4. This one's just straight up old-fashioned chapter 4 regular factoring. X plus 5, x plus 3 is equal to 0. Solutions, x equals negative 5, and x equals negative 3. So not all of these will be the most difficult ones you've ever done in your whole life. Sometimes they're easy. Alright, here on the back side, I see x to the 4th, 3 terms. So I'm thinking regular style factoring, except x squared and x squared. Let's see, so then this will be a minus 4 and minus 4. Negative 4 times negative 4 gives me positive 16, but adds up to that negative 8. This is the same thing twice. Same factor twice, so we have x squared minus 4 squared is equal to 0. So when we then set this piece up equal to 0, only have to do it once. We have x squared is equal to 4, telling us that x is equal to plus or minus 2 from when we square root both sides. Alright, this one, I see 4 terms, so we're factoring by grouping. This one's got a w squared over GCF, so we have 2w plus 1. Right, because we divided w squared out, so we have to have a 1 left over. Second term are both negative, so I'm going to pull out a negative for sure, as well as a 7. Getting me a 2w plus 1, because negative 7 divided by negative 7 is a positive 1. So we set up our GCF terms. We set up our factor that shows up twice. And then we set both of these up equal to 0. So we have w squared minus 7 is equal to 0. We have 2w plus 1 is equal to 0. So here we have w squared is equal to 7. Square root both sides to get the w is equal to plus or minus square root of 7. This one here, we subtract a 1 from both sides, and then divide by 2 to get the w is equal to negative 1/2. Alright, so this one says, hint, you have to find the zeros even if a piece doesn't fully factor. So let's see what that's talking about. Well, one thing I'm going to need to do first is subtract this 10x from both sides to get it over here. So you have x to the 4th plus 2x cubed minus 10x squared is equal to a 0. Got a GCF in there of a x squared. And then we're left with x squared plus 2x minus 10. Alright, so one of our zeros here is going to be x is equal to 0, because x, if I set up x squared equal to 0, square root both sides, get that x is equal to 0. This piece here is not factorable, so we have 2 options, quadratic formula or complete the square. I did completing the square earlier, so let's go quadratic formula on this one. We have negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Our b is 2. Our a is 1. And our c is a negative 10. Alright, so then simplifying, I have a negative 2 out in front, plus or minus. checking out what's underneath our square root here. We'll have a 2 squared is 4. Negative times negative is positive, so plus 40. So underneath we have the square root of 44 all over 2. I can simplify square root of 44 down to 4 and 11. Take the square root of 4 to get 2 square root 11. And then now, all of these are divisible by 2 to give us a negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 11. So that would be our other solutions right there. All right. Let's check this one. Factor but do not solve. So you might recognize, hey, I see I'm going to be doing some difference of cubes, but neither of these are cube roots. That's because we have a GCF in there of 2. So now we're looking like some cube roots here. So I'm going to set this up using SOAP. So we have same, opposite, always positive. So my A is x, my B is 3. So we have x plus 3. Then x squared minus 3x plus 9. And remember that just came from, sorry, let me change this to a x cubed right here. Just copied it down wrong. We cube root x cubed to find the a value. Right, cube root 27 to find the b value. And then we're plugging it into the formula. So that would be our factored form right there. So don't forget to include that GCF piece. All right. Now, find the real solutions. So that means the spots where we can physically see it crossing over the x-axis. So how this works is, we'll want to graph it into our calculator, but we need to first set this up equal to 0. So we're going to subtract a 3 there. Now we're equal to 0. So we're going to type this into our calculator, and then we will graph it. Use second trace and zeros, run through your left bound, right bound to find the spots where this touches or crosses the x-axis. When you do that, you'll see that one of your x's will be equal to a negative point, we could round it to 69. And then the other one, when I do my second trace and 0 in my left bound and my right bound, we find it to be at x is equal to 0.89. And what this graph looks like roughly is this. So if that's negative 1, and then here's 1, kind of cross over right before that, and then right before there. That's a quick sketch of our graph, with these being those x-intercepts. All right, bonus. Find all 5 solutions for this. Well, first part we're going to want to take care of getting it equal to 0. So we have 2x to the 6th plus 10x to the 4th minus 12x squared is equal to 0. We have a GCF in there of not just an x squared, but also a 2. So then we have x to the 4th plus 5x squared minus 6 is equal to 0. So let's continue to factor here. We've got 2x squared. This piece here will factor to x squared minus 1 and x squared plus 6. Okay, so let's set these different pieces up equal to 0. 2x squared equal to 0. Divide by 2, still got a 0. Take square root, still have your 0. So there's 1. So x is equal to 0. Now we need to set both of these pieces up. So we have x squared minus 1 is equal to 0. So x squared is equal to 1. Square root both sides. X is equal to plus or minus 1. There's 2 more solutions. Then we take this last piece. X squared plus 6 is equal to 0. So we have x squared is equal to a negative 6. Square root both sides.